All right, picture this. You're a shepherd
Right.
out in the Judean desert
Mm-hmm.
looking for lost sheep, right?
Right.
You come across a cave,
Yeah.
toss a rock in there just on a whim, and you hear pottery shattering.
Whoa.
So you check it out, and boom, you find ancient scrolls hidden in these broken jars.
That's amazing.
That's the story of the Dead Sea Scrolls, one of the most incredible archaeological discoveries ever. We're talking biblical texts, historical analysis.
Wow.
We've got personal accounts, the whole 9 yards. So today, we're diving deep into these scrolls to uncover what they tell us about early Judaism
Okay.
and even the origins of Christianity. It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, it really is like opening a time capsule,
Yeah,
giving us a direct link to this period in history, a period that's so important for understanding
huge.
both Judaism and Christianity.
Absolutely. We're talking about a collection of Jewish manuscripts, some biblical, some not,
Right?
dating back over 2,000 years.
That's incredible.
It is. But let's get to the heart of it. What makes these scrolls so groundbreaking? Why should we care about them today?
Well, let's take the Great Isaiah Scroll as an example. It's a near complete copy of the book of Isaiah.
Oh, wow.
But what's remarkable is it dates back to the 2nd century BCE.
It's so much older.
Think about that. That's over 1,000 years older than the oldest complete Hebrew Bible we had before, which was from the 10th century CE.
1,000 years. That's a huge gap.
It is.
Makes you wonder how accurate the transmission of the text was over all that time.
Exactly. And that's what's so fascinating about this scroll. When scholars compared this older version of Isaiah to the later versions,
Yeah?
they found some interesting differences.
Like what?
For example, in Isaiah 53, a passage that's often interpreted as messianic prophecy, the Great Isaiah Scroll uses the word light, where later versions use leper.
Wow.
It's a seemingly small difference, but
Huge implications.
it opens up a whole world of questions about how the interpretations of these prophecies might have evolved.
Right, because we're seeing how people understood these scriptures in their historical context.
Precisely.
And speaking of different interpretations, you mentioned earlier that not all of the scrolls were biblical texts.
You're right.
Tell me more about these apocryphal writings.
Okay, so apocryphal basically refers to writings that weren't included in the official biblical canon.
So outside the traditional Bible.
Exactly. And they offer a unique perspective. They give us a window into the diversity of Jewish beliefs and practices during what we call the Second Temple period.
Okay, so give me an example. What kind of writing are we talking about here?
One fascinating example is the Book of Jubilees,
Okay.
which basically retells the biblical stories
Oh,
from Genesis and Exodus, but with some interesting twists.
Right. What kind of twists are we talking about?
Well, for instance, Jubilees presents a very specific calendar system.
Okay.
It divides time into these 49-year periods called Jubilees, and it really emphasizes certain laws and practices, Sabbath observance, for example, even more strongly than the Torah does.
Really?
So this suggests that the group who wrote Jubilees, possibly the Essenes,
The Essenes, right.
yeah, had very particular interpretations of Jewish law.
So we're getting a glimpse into these different branches of Judaism?
Yes.
Different ways of understanding the same core texts.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned the Essenes, and I know they're connected to Qumran,
Right.
the site where most of the scrolls were found. Can you tell us more about that connection?
Yeah, so Qumran is widely believed to have been an Essene community. Their beliefs as we see them reflected in the scrolls often align with what we know about the Essenes from other historical sources, like the writings of Josephus, for example.
Right.
They were known for their emphasis on purity rituals, communal living,
Interesting.
and also apocalyptic expectations. But, there's still debate about whether they actually wrote all the scrolls themselves
Oh, really?
or if they collected them from elsewhere.
It's like a historical detective story.
It is.
And I remember reading that scroll fragments were also found at Masada,
That's right.
that incredible fortress built by Herod the Great. What's the significance of that discovery?
The Masada fragments are really fascinating because some were actually found in what's believed to have been a synagogue,
Oh, wow.
which gives us more insights into Jewish religious life at the time. For example, one fragment contains a portion of the Psalm scroll that very closely matches the traditional Masoretic text.
Okay.
And this indicates that there was widespread consistency in certain biblical texts across different Jewish communities.
It's amazing how these fragments, these seemingly insignificant pieces of parchment,
Right.
can add so much to the historical puzzle.
Absolutely.
But with all this talk about these ancient texts, it's easy to forget just how fragile these scrolls are.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, their survival for over 2 millennia is a miracle in itself.
Really is.
Exposure to light and air can cause irreparable damage.
Right.
It's this constant race against time to preserve them.
I can imagine.
I mean, imagine conservators working with tiny tweezers, painstakingly separating layers of parchment that have fused together over centuries.
Wow.
It's meticulous work, but absolutely vital
Yeah.
to ensure that these texts can be studied for generations to come.
It's almost humbling to think about
It is.
the dedication it takes to protect these echoes of the past.
Mm-hmm.
So let's step back for a moment.
Okay.
We've talked about textual variations, apocryphal texts, the Essenes, and the challenges of preservation.
Right.
What's the big takeaway? Why should we, in the 21st century, care about these ancient scrolls?
The Dead Sea Scrolls have fundamentally changed our understanding of how Judaism and early Christianity developed.
All right.
They offer us a unique window into the diversity of Jewish thought and practice, especially during the Second Temple period, a period that was just absolutely crucial for the formation of both religions.
Right.
And they've also given us older versions of biblical texts,
Yeah.
which allows us to kind of trace their evolution over time
Fast.
and gain deeper insights into their meaning and interpretation.
It's not just about dusty old scrolls, then.
It's not.
It's about understanding the roots of our own beliefs and cultures, how they've evolved and been shaped over time.
Exactly.
And who knows what other secrets these scrolls might hold, what future discoveries might challenge our assumptions
Who knows?
and rewrite the history books. Really makes you wonder.
It does.